Hello, Booknerds, and welcome to the Booknerds podcast. I am so glad to do this session. As you can see, I'm very excited. Varun, first of all, welcome to the podcast. Happy to read your book, and I'll talk about the book in a bit. But first of all, I want to welcome you. I am excited because I'm going to talk about a book which the genre is very new to me. That's what excites me about the podcast, Varun, because when we are encountered with these kind of books, we are excited. Oh my god,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't even think about this. And of course, you
Yeah.
come from pedigree of doing this day in and day out, so you would be knowing about it. But it's very exciting for book lovers who don't hear about all this. The book is called Corporate
Okay.
Karma, and
Yeah.
when the I heard the words corporate and karma, I was like,
Mm.
oh my god, this is so relevant right now. There is so much
Yeah.
happening in the world, and of course it
Yes.
concentrates on navigating spiritual risks in within an
Yes.
organization. So relevant, and a lot of organizations, especially the startups, don't really should I say, they are not equipped to understand or perhaps use the tools that are required to navigate this. And perhaps that's why they are crashing and burning, so many of them. So we'll talk about all of that.
Yes.
Of course,
Okay.
Lord Krishna, Chanakya, and so much more. It's super exciting. Thank you for writing this book. It's a great start in this genre. And okay, guys, let me tell you about Varun a little bit. Varun comes from a long pedigree, corporate experience of 12 years. He has worked in the sphere of, spiritual risk management. And I didn't understand what is an ITGRC specialist, but it sounds cool. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell me more about this. He
Okay.
has worked on this for a long time, and therefore, we'll ask him, why did you choose to write this book? Because you could have easily just written on LinkedIn and people would have understood. But why the book, specially? You have got some great mentors also associated with
Yes.
this. I read the name
Yes.
of Mr. Vivek
Yeah.
as well
Yes.
and others.
Yes.
First of all, let me stop and ask you, why this book, and please define, SRM for us, spiritual risk management for us, because most of us, most of the
Mm-hmm.
viewers wouldn't know about this, would love to know about this, especially those who are working in organizations. Maybe they, come up with better questions about the organization
Mm.
and ask the management to, incorporate this in their structure.
Yes. So coming to your question, it's a very good question because this book, as you rightly mentioned, it's one of its kind in the literature world. So coming to this point of spiritual risk, it basically, in layman terms, it's all about those risks which relate to an individual's well-being.
Right.
Now, let's take an example here. I'll rather take an example from my own corporate journey. Now, in this 12-year span, I have performed, very well in different roles as a software developer, and then I transitioned into an auditor role and so on. But as I was moving from one role to the other, what I was realizing is that after performing the role for, say, a period of 2, 3 years, I quickly got bored of the job that I was doing, and I was not able to, connect with the organization's objectives. And like, okay, I'm doing this job day in and day out, going to my office. Okay, fine, I have some responsibilities at my end. But then at the end of the day, I was like, okay, this is what I have to deliver for my project, that's all. But how is this connecting with the organization? Is it, and I didn't find any alignment between my work and what the organization's goals were. So there's a complete disconnect. And that is the reason why I was, transitioning my roles from one role to another role. And this is something that many employees across all organizations are experiencing. And I think if you read my book, I think in the first chapter, I have mentioned this point of disconnect. And a
Yep.
very interesting statistic that out of 10 employees, 6 or 7 employees feel extremely disconnected with what they're doing.
It's staggering that out of 10, you know,
Hmm.
being a founder myself, this is staggering because we as founders believe that we are, able to, define our mission and, uh,
Hmm.
perhaps, communicate the vision of the company, which is in our head, to be honest, to
Yes.
the teammates very effectively. We have this delusion, and,
Hmm.
but you are saying that this doesn't translate at all to most employees in
No.
most
Mm,
organizations. So, yeah.
it this to you'll find the story getting repeated across the board. Maybe employees will not tell to you on the face,
Hmm.
but if you have casual chats with them, you will understand that yes, they're doing it because of some compulsion. It could be
Hmm.
they have responsibilities, or
Hmm.
okay, they find this area interesting, but they're still not able to connect with the vision that you have told them. I'm just
Hmm.
taking you as an example.
Yeah.
But
Why not?
this
Why not?
applies, yeah, yeah. So this applies to across all organizations, and that's why you see this concept of attrition, right? Where immediately after the pandemic happened, you saw a major rise in attrition across all companies. And why that happened, it was people started realizing, oh, we have so much time. What are we doing here? What's our purpose? And these essential core questions of our life started springing. It's a rather pleasant, uh, surprise on everyone's mind. And it's a good thing which happened because it became a seller's market in that ways, because companies also started understanding the worth of employees, because till then all employees, even if you see across the board, especially IT service provider companies,
Hmm. Hmm.
they just to be very frank, they just treat all the employees as a cost to the company. It's very
Right.
few companies they have well-being programs and all those things. Yes, even my current organization has a lot of well-being programs,
Hmm.
but from my experience as their employee, we just don't get the time to
Ah,
attend these programs. Max, at the max we can attend the department level programs, updates and so on, wherein they give tips on how to grow in your career and all those things. But when it comes to well-being, HR has an honest intent to have such programs, but how many of employees attend them, I really, it's a big question mark.
I
So it's
actually
all
remember.
about.
You're so right. I actually remember. So I was asked to do this program for Cisco, where I had to
Hmm.
recommend books and possibly, encourage them to read to,
Hmm.
just level up or whatever. And there was a disconnect. I mean, they didn't really want to
Hmm.
be in that room. To be honest, I really felt that. But I guess
Yes.
it's easier said than done. I mean, there has to be a more of a comprehensive, change that needs to come in to perhaps encourage people to read or perhaps concentrate more on mindfulness. And you have written about this in the book in quite
Yeah.
detail.
Yeah.
So you talked about attrition,
Hmm.
and you have also spoken about retention rate of companies,
Yes.
which
Yes.
which
Yes.
is quite, I mean, important because the best companies, I mean, if you, I don't know what the metrics are to judge a
Hmm.
company now, but the best companies that have done over a period of time will have good retention rates. At least that is the
Yes.
common,
Yes.
consensus
Yeah.
among people.
You,
So, would you like to
you're
comment
you're
on that?
see, as I mentioned earlier, attrition is one of those common metrics, as you rightly mentioned. And if you look at companies which are differentiating themselves, yes, they equally look at the retention rates. This is a small factor, but I'll just give you an example of this recent big hype around this work from home and work from office thing. It's a very
Mhm.
small aspect, but so there's so much of debate on social media. Even if you look at so many LinkedIn posts, there's so much of debate going on. Half of them are, and it's a complete polarized opinion.
mm.
Some of them are saying, we should adopt work from home. Some are saying we should adopt work from office. But and you see some companies, I won't take their names, they are, enforcing work from office all the 5 days and so on.
Oh
But
yes,
eh,
that's happening.
and that's happening, and this this will turn out to be a big factor in the coming days and coming months, because I'll just tell you, people, after the pandemic, as I earlier mentioned, people started questioning about what is their purpose, how do they connect with the, and they felt that complete disconnect, and people started leaving in masses, because
Mm,
companies were offering double the hikes, 50% hike, 100% hike. Why not anyone will leave? And
mm,
also apart from that, they were giving features like complete work from home, and there are
mm,
still companies which are offering that. And this will turn out to be a major factor, see, because people are not only looking for salary, they're
mm.
looking for having that quality time to be spent with their family members, and that is what
Yeah.
is missing in many of organizations these days. And this might be a very small thing for the leadership of any organization, but if
Mm,
they don't enforce
mm.
work from office, I think that will turn out to be a big differentiating factor for these companies in increasing retention.
Yeah. So you have, encapsulated all this in a broad manner and called it
Hmm.
spiritual risk management.
Yes,
So our
yes.
readers and viewers would love to know what is that, and from the founder perspective, especially,
Hmm.
how can one kind of, incorporate tools and develop methods to perhaps this is a paradigm shift. I mean, most
Mm,
employers would just love for their work to be done and that's about it,
that's
and
about it. Yes.
then have certain things just to, for example, CSR. I mean, it's
Hmm.
there, it is compulsory, right? You need to have it,
Yes.
but how to use it effectively as a tool to perhaps mitigate those risks that you have talked about in the book.
Uh, See, these, as I mentioned earlier in one of your questions, there are many well-being programs that are organized by HR of many organizations. That is just one part of the wheel, this wheel of spiritual risk management. There are many aspects. I will just give you one more thing, and it also boils down to every manager who is executing, or rather leading the project for
Yeah.
his team, because that is where those small things matter, like having
Mm,
informal chats, casual chats, and understanding what is the journey of his team member,
mm,
whether it is 1 year or 2 years, and understanding their strengths, their challenges, and giving a pat on the back, those small things, a
yeah.
word of appreciation. And even another aspect is, suppose you're not able to deliver as per the
Mm,
target, you
mm,
generally find that obviously your boss is going to get pissed off,
mm.
and sometimes in anger might yell at you in front of everyone. And the best practice across the best organizations is that they criticize in private. They don't do this
Okay.
openly,
Okay.
and I
Okay.
don't see this or rather this practice is getting lost across many organizations.
Okay.
And these small things also add up to this whole gamut of tools that you spoke about. And these are basically not tools, these are just adapting your behavior to ensure that not only your team delivers the goals that
Yeah.
have been set by the customer, but also do it with a sense of you know alignment to not only the project goals but also to the organization goals. And then
Yeah.
in turn you become a one team, you become a strategic partner to the customer, and also not have those frictions that you see daily in your corporate journey.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those small things are the ones that are really critical important apart from those well-being programs.
Yeah. You have mentioned the Tatas. I would have liked a
Hmm.
bigger chapter on them, but this book is about being a it's a starter. I mean, of course. So I know that this book could have been like 300 pages long, but you have, I think so, deliberately not,
Mm,
made it very big. And that's a good strategy, because otherwise people just don't have the time sometimes to kind of, delve into something like this, because this can get hectic, to be honest. You have mentioned the Tatas again and again. Everybody
yeah.
talks about them. There are
Yes.
so many LinkedIn posts out there praising them, sometimes not praising them, which is rare,
Mm,
but then again, there has to be another side.
right.
But what are the things that they are doing right? Because this
Mm-hmm.
is a legacy that is like so, more than 100 odd years old. And it all started with,
Mm-hmm.
back in the 1900s. So, yeah, tell us about that.
Mm-hmm.
What are they ticking off?
If you look at their 100-year legacy, whether they are, and it's a huge, a huge conglomerate, as you know, they produce salt, they produce cars,
Yeah,
they are into designing and so much more. And generally, you see these Fortune 500 companies across the world who have started 100 years back.
yeah,
Around 70 to 80% of them had just vanished within
yeah,
a quarter of a century. You
yeah,
find very few groups which are standing the test of time. And the biggest factor, as you have asked, is this factor of trust. Now, building trust is something that you don't build it overnight. It takes
yeah,
many years of effort. And even if you look at their ads,
yeah.
they always connect that factor of trust with patriotism, desh ka namak, desh ka gadi, and
Yes,
all those things.
yes,
And it is not only done outside, I mean, say in the to all the customers to bring about that perception, even within the organization. I was fortunately a part of the Tata Group for almost 11 years. I was part of Tata
oh,
Technologies, and
wonderful.
that the biggest, rather the advantage that I saw was, even though the company was not a big name, but which is now it is, I found a lot of
Yeah,
you know friendship amongst all colleagues, and
yeah,
everyone having that sense of uh, responsibility and going about their work. And there was a sense of connection that we all are a part of the Tata Group, esteemed Tata Group.
right,
So
right.
that gave us a sense of pride, and that this factor of trust. Those are the biggest factors that are driving. We do everything, rather whatever, or rather whichever company the Tata Group is running now.
Yeah,
Every organization within the Tata Group has a goal, not only to deliver to customers, but it also looks at delivering those products and services for the benefit of people at large. And that has been another big factor. So it's trust, pride,
yeah,
and products and services for the masses. And that's
yeah,
why Tata Group has been living so long.
yeah. Awesome. I didn't know that you work with the Tatas, so that's great. But companies need to evolve also with the changing landscape.
Yes.
You have also mentioned in the book that diversity, inclusion, and
Hmm.
respecting religious practices, everything is so important right now, because employees are looking at
Hmm.
that. I think so. There are some employees who
Yes.
just look at perhaps a company's preferences of politics to choose them. Right now
Yeah.
we are seeing this,
Yes. Yeah.
very often right now. I think so, watching something, and there were some Google employees, protesting in the Google office against their policies.
Office.
So that's
Yeah.
something very,
Policy. Yeah.
yeah, that's very interesting, because I mean, being a millennial, I never imagined that something like this would happen, and companies would need to evolve and be
Yeah.
more sort of uh, mindful about what they're doing in terms of projects and so many things, right? So what do you have to say to that? How do we evolve that ways? Do we uh, is there a department like that in companies who just deals with this, or because many companies are also shutting down people and not taking feedback at all?
Hmm. Feedback, yeah. Yeah, coming to your question, what I am aware of is it's primarily the HR business unit which looks into diversity and inclusion. I am frankly not aware if there's a separate um, department that caters specifically to diversity and inclusion. I'm not aware if there's a separate department exclusive for the same. But as you rightly mentioned, this is a very evolving challenge. Companies need to look at the needs and aspirations of different communities and different groups. So it's really going to be a challenge, and at the moment, I don't, I'm not able to visualize any innovative solution for this. This
Yeah,
is something that the HR teams of various organizations have to tackle it as the issue comes up on a
yeah,
case by case basis. So that's
yeah.
something that we need to closely watch and see how the trend pans out. That's all I can say as of now.
Okay, okay. uh, it's affecting a lot of companies, so I'm really worried because traditionally we have never sort of encountered these issues, but yeah, let's see what happens. I think so this is an evolving scenario, so
What
let's
happens?
see what happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an evolving story. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So, when we finish almost half the book, and there is a lot of very cool examples that you have used from our history, our mythology. There is, of course, Chanakya. Uh, the name is known to many people. Perhaps not many understand it pretty well. They use it randomly everywhere. I mean, it's a matter of convenience. Wherever you want to say portray a cunning guy, or very smart guy, you would put in the name. And of course then you'll use Lord Krishna's learnings, and try to explain what you're trying to do in this book regarding mitigating spiritual risk. So tell us a bit about that. Why these examples? How would they be relevant right now? Because they say that it's Kali. So how can we use these, you know, learnings right now in the contemporary world, and perhaps do better? And are any companies doing this as of now?
Yeah, very, very good questions. See, this is one concern that I, as an author, had looking at our rich spiritual history and culture. That even if we talk across the board, people are getting so influenced by Western practices, Western culture. Yes, there are certainly several things that are good about these Western countries, whether it's USA or whether it's the countries in Europe.
Yeah.
There are many things which we can learn from them, but something that's really missing, especially in the West, is their spiritual connect, and that's something that our culture and history really provides us with a very, very strong foundation. And sadly, this is something that is being forgotten across all generations. At least our grandfathers and before them, we they were very, you know, uh, connected to these spiritual roots. But over a period of time, because of influence by the government and because of influence of the erstwhile colonial rulers, we lost a sense of pride when it came to our own spiritual culture. And there's so
Mm.
much of a treasure which is hidden within, even just if you look at Lord Krishna's life or Chanakya's life, there's so much of a treasure hidden in their teachings, in the way they led their lives. I
Mm.
thought it's right time to just rather shed light on certain aspects of their teaching and life to the readers who are reading this book in a simplified fashion.
Yeah.
And I hope that message has gone across to all of them.
At least to me, because I found the Chanakya and
Okay,
Lord Krishna chapter super interesting. It was short. I think there can be a book
short, yeah.
about this because there can be an
Yeah,
entire book.
yes,
Yeah. So
book on yes.
one story which really resonated with me, and that was the encounter of Chanakya with Chandragupta Maurya when he had amassed so much
Hmm.
of wealth, and Chanakya said
Wealth.
that this is dangerous and there is redistribution needed. And this was like, oh my God,
Hmm.
is Varun talking about, or this story is so much about, right now. We have just,
Right now, yes.
looked at the election results. There is so much talk about redistribution. On one hand, there
Tuition
are,
money.
bigger families, throwing away money, and the LCM of our, the lowest common denominator, at least, of our society
Hmm.
is just struggling for, for
Yeah.
survival, for that next meal. Um, and then there are corporates, of course. So, what do you think about this? What's your opinion? Because this story was interesting. Tell us about the story a little bit, because our readers would love to hear about this. And then, what is your personal opinion on this?
Yeah, as you rightly summarized the story, it was about how Chandragupta Maurya was becoming very powerful after annexing the kingdom from the Nandas, and
Yeah,
he was rightly taking guidance from Chanakya at various stages in his life to, rule the kingdom in a just and right manner. And that point of time, this unique case comes up wherein he has amassed a lot of wealth,
yeah,
and that becomes a red flag for Chanakya. He
mm,
realizes that if this wealth is not distributed, it
mm,
could really cause a big negative impact over his masses and
yeah,
overall his reputation as a just ruler would take a big hit. And that's where he suggests to redistribute that wealth. And frankly, at that point of time when I wrote this, I did visualize that this would become a hot topic in a current
It became,
Lok
it is an
Sabha
election. It
election
was an election issue, by the way. It was an election issue.
issue. Yeah, it's an issue. And I didn't visualize this at all. I just wrote it because it connected with the theme of the book.
Yeah,
And as you had asked, the third question is what we should do in current times to redistribute wealth. I think more than redistribution of wealth, I think people across all strata of society need to realize that you can't be getting, support from the government for long. You can't get freebies from the government. You have to stand on your own feet at some
yeah,
point of time. Yes, the government, even if you look at countries which are having a very high index of happiness, they do
yeah.
support their citizens who are in poverty for some months. But after that, they say no, no more after that.
True,
You have
true.
to stand on your feet and you can't depend on the government for everything. It's not,
Right.
the government is not your mother or father whom
Yeah,
you can, keep on crying and going and saying, okay, give me this, give me that. The government can only support its citizens to some extent, but after that, every citizen has to be on his own.
yeah,
So this topic goes beyond redistribution of wealth, and citizens should have a sense of responsibility, and that is
yeah,
something sadly which is getting eroded because of this continuous culture of freebies being given by the government.
yeah.
I
That
think that
has to
will lead
be,
to the
I
only
think, yeah, that has to be perhaps a motivation to do better.
yes,
If you
yeah,
have got help, and you have the minimum needs sorted out, then one can, do even better. But I guess it's in a country like, I mean, at least India, it's
Yeah.
so big and there is so much happening. This will take time. And I
This will
encountered a
take
very
time. Yeah.
interesting, yeah, I encountered a very interesting post about, I think he's a LinkedIn influencer, and he was talking about taxes and, how taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes, he said that he sometimes, rants about giving too much tax. So, but then he realizes that, okay, this may contribute to someone in some corner of the
Mm.
country. So he went on and on about, talking about that. But yeah, fair enough. I mean, if it's contributing to the nation, then yeah, so be it.
Yeah.
I think so. Perhaps whoever gets that money does better, and then of course it's a,
Yeah.
geometric sort of effect to the country. Anyways, okay, we were talking about learnings from Lord Krishna as well, and some will argue that, okay, how is it relevant right now? People are so insensitive; they are not mindful. How will they, think about this, process this? Perhaps be more kind on a daily basis. Is it because corporate life has got that sort of image that it is very hectic. It is cutthroat. If you don't do well, then you are cut off. We see mass layoffs. There is so much unhappiness also because of that. We have seen it in our country as well. Companies like Byju's, who have, sort of
Mm.
fired people across the board for
Yeah.
last 3 years,
Yeah.
and that kind brings in more uncertainty in people who join these startups and new organizations, at least, because of course there's a pride in sort of joining the bigger ones, the Tatas, Birlas, and others, Ambanis. They have a sort of legacy going on. But the new organizations, how they should be careful about all this.
Yeah. There are several factors to this. I think if you're looking at a startup per se,
Yeah.
they should focus on getting their financial fundamentals right in the first place. And I think that's something that is really missing in all these cases that you spoke about, especially Byju's. It was a very, very big name. And somewhere, even if you look back maybe few years before, the amount of money they have been spending on marketing their products and services, and it seemed a little bit off.
Yeah.
How could an organization grow so quickly in such a short span of time? And there were many more questions related to this. And there's one more thing which I personally experienced as a prospective customer to them. And I saw the way their sales team were pushing their products and services down our throats. Even when
Mm,
we categorically said no,
mm,
that was the very desperate attempt from their sales team to push it down our throat. And that was something which I personally didn't like.
mm.
So, yeah,
Nobody would have liked
it
it. I mean, it's not only Byju's. I mean, there are a lot of
yeah,
companies who are doing that, and the sales team needs to know the limits. I know it
limit.
is coming from, it's a top down thing. I mean, it's coming, the
Yes,
pressure is coming from the top.
top. True, true. You are very right. This is a result of the pressure from the top, and you're seeing the final end result now.
Yeah.
Byju's is on the verge of bankruptcy. They have lost all their credibility and reputation. So if they
Mm,
had kept their financial fundamentals strong,
yeah.
like the Tata Group, I think they would have never seen this day in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a case of
That is,
absolute greed, a lack
yeah,
of value systems.
oh yes, that is so right. I mean, sorting out finances very quickly is important, and that's where most startups are struggling
Most
to
are
kind of,
struggling.
uh,
Yeah,
because I think so most startups are technology CEO driven, so they don't have that guy initially who
Yes,
understands is
initially.
that this is
Yes.
important. Perhaps we get obsessed with the product and you know putting it out quickly, getting investment quickly, but then it hits
Yeah.
that, okay, where to take all this money,
Where to
which
take
has,
money? Yeah.
yeah,
That's true. That's
it's
very true. It's these key pillars, whether it's not only about the product or the service, it's also about how you're going to run your startup or a big IT service provider day in and day out.
yeah,
Because people are going to work for, to ensure that the service or the product you're marketing reaches the customer and they like the product, they become repeat customers and so on. So there are different pillars to every startup or any organization, and finance is the most important part.
yeah, cool. Okay, so you have all the, you have your opinions. I am very happy to report that whenever I put in big names or talk about big names, most people like flinch and don't talk about it. I'm very happy that you are very open about this. In a utopian scenario, in a society or corporate scenario, what would you like, what how would it look like for you? At least you must have thought about this.
Yeah, a rather utopian society concept. I would like to see where every citizen in this country, especially our country, is you know living that living the life that he has dreamt of. I'm not
Wonderful.
saying necessarily that everyone becomes an Ambani or
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos for that matter, but you know, whatever small dreams that they are having, whether it is to purchase their own house or to have their own car and work for a good organization or run their own business,
Yeah.
these small dreams are something which I see in a utopian society getting fulfilled very easily.
What about in the
And with
corporate
our
scenario? Yeah.
sorry, I didn't get your question. Corporate
I,
scenario as
I'm
in?
saying that, yeah, in the corporate scenario, how would your, for example, if it's your company, how would it look like in
Mm-hmm,
terms of mitigating on all the risks that you have talked about in the
mm-hmm,
book? For
mm-hmm,
example,
mm-hmm,
the finance has to be sorted. There should be mindfulness towards
mm-hmm,
employees. There should be certain level of work-life balance. I think so.
mm-hmm.
Uh, Too much of it can also be dangerous. The
Yes.
managers are trained. All these things. How does it look
Mm-hmm.
like for you? What are the changes that you would like to perhaps see coming in?
Yeah, some of the points you have already mentioned in your question. Emphasis should primarily be on work-life balance because
Okay.
um, I don't know if you have read the Bible. The Bible says that the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath, which basically translates to work was made for man and not man for work. And I
Truly.
think that essence, if all organizations realize
Mm.
and understand that it's not about profits and revenue all the time, it's all about another very important stakeholder, which is its employees who are driving the organization. Just imagine a situation where you
Mhm.
have a company which is there in the center of the city and you
Yeah.
just don't have a single employee within the premises. How is the company going to run?
Truly. Yeah.
It will seem like a ghost office. No
Yeah.
one within the buildings. And no one would like such a scenario. I know that scenario would never come.
Mm.
But yes, the emphasis would be on work life balance and managers empowering all their team members to deliver their targets and playing the role of more like a mentor or a coach that you see in top professional sports team, including cricket,
Yeah.
and giving salaries which are at the market rate. And then that's a very ideal scenario. But I
Yeah.
hope we see this happening across all the organizations one day.
Awesome, Varun. Thank you so much for doing this. And there are so many topics I would love to delve in deeper, but I think so. The viewers will get pissed off with us if we go on for longer. But I suppose in the next podcast we can go delve deeper into this. Thank you so much for enlightening us. And this book is super interesting, guys. Corporate Karma. It's available on Amazon. You can check it out. It's very relevant to business owners or people who are working in different organizations. Even if you are self-employed in any way, it's very important. If you're a freelancer running an agency, do read this. Pay heed to every word that Varun has written, and do reach out to him on LinkedIn. He's pretty active on LinkedIn. You can reach out to him on LinkedIn and discuss whatever you felt about the book or your feedback about the book. There is always room for improvement in all of us, so you can always give feedback. And thank you again, Varun, for being on the Book Nerds podcast. And Yeah, happy reading.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rohan. It's been an absolute pleasure for me to be on this podcast. It's the first time that I've been invited on a podcast, and it's been a very thrilling experience. I was a little nervous,
So much.
to be
Thank you so
honest.
much. I think so.
And
You should do more.
yeah,
You are so good at it. You are so good at it. You were at ease. Let me tell you that.
okay, thank you so much. Thank you for the confidence. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.